The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the new home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. It is also the new home for Autism Live. We are in fact coming to you from our brand new studio on the 18th floor of Tower 1. Thrilled to be here with you on this lovely Wednesday in the middle of summer. We've got a great show planned for you on Wednesdays. You know I love this because we start out with Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us. She's going to be answering your questions live in just a few minutes. And then in the second hour today, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be joining me, and our special guest today is Vince Redmond. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist. We're going to be talking specifically today about bonding, about all the things that can go wrong with bonding, when we want to release the apron strings, when we want to keep them strong, how we negotiate all these different points in our children's lives, how we support them but not give too much, and not have them counting too much on us. So we're going to be talking about that with Vince Redmond. You can be sending in questions at any point on our live feature. In fact, we want to talk to you a little bit about how you can access the show, how you can be watching, and how you can ask questions. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways. I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. So much to do when you go to that page. Really want to encourage you to sign up for our email list. When you do, you will get a free monthly newsletter, which is really fun and gives you some insight into some of the things that are happening behind the scenes here at Autism Live, give you insider information, things ahead of time. But also when you are on that list, you get our weekly viewer guide. That comes out on Monday and it gives you an idea of what's going to be on the show. But as you know, sometimes things change. In fact, a little bit later on today, those of you who are on the email list are going to get a refresher because we've got some exciting new things that have happened for tomorrow that we want to let you know about. You can only find out about that if you are on the email list. Otherwise, we don't have a way to get a hold of you because when you mostly participate with us on that homepage, I know that you're doing it through the live feature, which is a wonderful thing. I call it instant gratification. If you look at the white boxes that are on that homepage, you put your cursor in the one that says your question, you start typing and you hit enter, and that's all you have to do. There is no username. You don't have to give us an email. You don't have to give us a credit card number. In fact, we don't even know who you are. And that's a lovely, lovely thing to have complete and total anonymity. But it doesn't allow us to get back to you, right? So that's what that email list is about. If you want information about what's happening, you must sign up for it. But please use the live feature. We love having a conversation with you back and forth. It's truly a wonderful thing. Don't forget, too, if you click on the triangle that is on the computer screen on the homepage, you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show. If you want to go back further, go to the playlist in the upper left-hand corner, click on that, and you can cycle back through the 100 most recent episodes of the show. And don't forget to check us out on our app, which is available for both iPhones and for Android. It's free and another great way that you can be watching the show. All right, having said all that, I hope you will participate with us because it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome back Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Good morning.
It's so wonderful to be here with you
Thank you
and to
so
have
much.
this opportunity. For our viewers at home, if you're just tuning in and this is the first time you've seen the show, you should know that Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. In fact, she's a visionary in the field of autism.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
Well,
embarrassed
thank you. Thank you, because I don't know where we would be without you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Well,
I
thrilling
enjoy
for
my
us.
hour.
Wonderful opportunity for us to have a dialogue with you about the things that are on our mind. We do like to remind everybody at the start of the show that there is no expert who can give individual specific advice in this format, right? It requires being able to see a person and get to know them and more information. But having said that, we get insight into ideas of directions that we might go from being able to pick your brain.
Yeah, we'll try our best. I was just looking at the questions you put in front of me 2 minutes ago, and sometimes some of the questions are just harder to answer because I don't know the child and I don't know their functioning level, their comprehension level, what else is going on in their life. So it's pretty difficult, and sometimes I hate not being able to help the people who have written in, but sometimes we'll have to just advise you to get in touch with a professional in your area so that they can gain access to your child and learn more about the child, because it's very important to be accurate when we do these types of interventions or any of the advice that I give you. I would hate to mislead you just because I don't know the child.
Yeah, but having said that, I have to say that even that bit of information, having you say it's time to go seek out professional help to deal with this, is so helpful.
Perhaps that's
sometimes
helpful.
we don't even know at what point do we need to seek out help.
Perhaps
so
that's the case.
we thoroughly enjoy the time that we get to spend with you.
As do
I know you guys all write in and say that as well. I'm going to jump right in here because we have a lot of questions that have come in. Somebody wrote in and said, this was one from last week that I promised that we would get to this week. And I love it when you guys are watching, so that if Dr. Granpeesheh asks you a question, if you have the opportunity to answer us back in real time. I'm keeping an eye on the crawl. So they wrote in and said, my son is 5 and at a typical preschool, they play soccer a lot and he gets lost and zones at cause because he doesn't understand the basics of the game. We tried to put him in soccer shots, but it was too hard to keep up for him. It was outside and he got distracted and frustrated and started crying. I was in another building, so I saw all this unfold. How can I help him with this? And they said, thank you in advance.
It's a tough one because soccer is actually a pretty complicated, there's a lot going on. Group games in general, any kind of group athletics has a lot going on. I mean, it's not like there are basics. We could talk about what we would consider to be basics of the game, but the truth is the concepts are pretty advanced. I guarantee you that all the other children who are preschool age are also not really understanding the concept. The concept here is, you have to know how to be part of a group, how to interact with other people who are on your team. So that means you have to identify all the other people who are on your team. You have to know all the basic moves of soccer, like you have to run and shoot the ball and then be able to pass it to your teammates. And then you always have to keep in mind that you have the objective of actually reaching the goal and shooting the ball into the goal. So that is a pretty advanced thing. It's much different than, let's say, marathon running or even any kind of solo sport where you're just focused on the actual sub-behaviors of the task, the sport itself, rather than the team aspect. The team aspect makes it very hard. When you look at kids who are playing soccer, just typically developing preschool-aged kids, I mean, I think preschool is a really early age for soccer, but when you look at it, they're often running the wrong direction. They often will pass it to the wrong person on the other team. They will often even shoot in their own goal. And in my mind, I try to, and I did this with my kids, I always tried to not put them in a position where they might fail because it'll be a traumatic thing for them. They'll remember it. So I don't, if you really want, if everybody else is playing soccer and your child has no option but to be involved in that, then I would really perhaps try to initiate just teach him how to kick a ball back and forth with one other child. And then, the next thing I would teach is just the color of the jersey or somehow knowing the other children and who he should just kick back and forth with. I mean, once you know how to kick and run, that's probably, you're going to be better at soccer than others. Having said that, I heard that you have Vince Redmond on later today.
We do.
And Vince, in addition to being a LMF, licensed marriage family counselor, and have great experience and expertise in ABA. He's been doing ABA with me for over 20 years.
And is featured on the film Recovered.
Is featured on the film Recovered, and he's a fabulous supervisor. But in addition to all of that, he's also a soccer coach. And he is a crazy soccer player, and I would say soccer is one of the biggest parts of his life. So why don't you pose this to him as well, because he might have some better ideas in terms of how to break down the sport and teach the very basic elements.
And thank you. I don't think I knew that about Vince. So I think I knew that his daughters played, but I didn't realize that it was such a big deal to him.
Oh, it's him.
So
it's because of him.
All right.
Even when his daughters were born, I was like, well, we're going to have some girl soccer players.
All right. Okay, so now I know that. And thank you also for talking to us, because I think we forget sometimes how many different aspects of anything, whether it's soccer or being at a birthday party, how many different aspects of it that we're expecting a child to be good at all at once. And especially for our kids, it's an unrealistic expectation.
That's right.
But if we focus on one thing, I can remember going to a birthday party and being told to work on one thing. And then what happens for us as parents, when we leave, we know what one thing we were working on, and we can feel like, hey, we made progress on that.
That's right.
And you feel excited about it. So soccer's a lot of things.
So it is, just like any other,
if
you look at group sports, they're just really complicated.
Yeah. Okay, well, good advice. And we will talk to Vince about that in the next hour. I'm going to move on to the next question that I also promised we would get to last week. Hi, ladies. Thank you for imparting your wisdom. We're having sleep issues. I'm giving my son 1 milligram at night of melatonin, but he wakes up still and is very restless at night. We're trying to get him to sleep in his own bed, but when he comes to our bed, we're so tired we let him in. Oh, sister. Can we talk? I am related to you. I get tired and I'd be like, burn the house down. I don't care. I'm tired. And then you continue to say, I have tried to put in an air mattress in his room, but then he just wants to sleep in the air mattress with me.
Right.
Any tips?
Yes, a lot of tips.
Okay.
I think the next one is also the same child, 5-year-old?
Yes, and she went on to write that the child is 5.
5. So your child is 5, and I'm not sure how much he weighs, but my assumption would be that you can, first of all, increase the melatonin. The dosage for melatonin, 1 milligram, seems pretty low. I don't know how much he weighs, but I would recommend that you consider, I personally found that melatonin alone for my children and for myself would have this weird effect of kind of like making us restless and just making us drowsy, but then up and down, and it didn't really work. But then I started to use this product that is called Tranquil Sleep, and it's melatonin and theanine and tryptophan, 5-HTP, all mixed together. And so they're all pretty harmless things if you take them in the right dose, and that is really effective, and it has a completely different effect. The dosage is very important, and I'm not. I would imagine that your child. It depends on the weight, and you have to really, first of all, look on the box that you buy. But perhaps you want to order the Tranquil Sleep and try that, and perhaps according to the directions, it might be appropriate for you to try a little bit of a higher dose. That will help. The behavioral aspect of this is, okay, so put an air mattress in his room and sleep there, and let him start with sleeping with you in the air mattress. That's your baseline. That's where you start. And then what you do from there, and I know it's so difficult because this is one of the most difficult things. It's exhausting. But what you will do is you will gradually, this is what I would do. You have the air mattress and you have his bed, and you attempt to try to get him to stay in his bed while you sleep in the air mattress. If that doesn't work, you should put the air mattress really, as close as possible to his bed, so they're like touching. And then you can sleep on the air mattress and he can sleep in his bed. You can even have your hand on him if that helps, so that he knows that there's contact. That's your step 2. So step 1, he's in the mattress, he's on the air mattress with you. Step 2 is he's in his bed, but you're touching. Step 3 is, 2 inches away. You move the air mattress 2 inches away. Step 4 is 5 inches away. And this is a gradual process. And you have to go back and forth. Like he might react, the moment that you move your air mattress in far enough away from him that he then again attempts to get up and come join you is where you take him back, push your air mattress back to where it was the previous night and go back to that. So it might take a whole month that you are on the air mattress and he's in his bed. But by this point, you will have very gradually over the course of this month moved the mattress closer and closer to the door. And believe it or not, you're going to have to just now go outside the door and try to move back into your room. And that's your goal. The easiest way to do that, obviously, is to just go from his room to your room. But you will have him, the minute you're not in his room, he will begin to come seek you out. You cannot allow him to come and stay in your bed anymore. That phase has passed. You have to understand that if you allow that, then you're back at phase 1, and you'll have to go through the whole thing all over again. Now, usually, there are other things you can do that might help. For instance, our children feel safer when they have perhaps some light on in the room. Not a lot of light, because too much light will actually not let the child sleep. A tiny bit of light. Maybe a blanket that has your scent. Maybe a stuffed animal. Maybe you can pad all around him in bed so that he's actually feeling more, safe. Don't give him liquids late at night so that he wakes up because he has to go to the bathroom. Make sure he doesn't get to eat or drink anything when he wakes up, because when we wake up and eat or drink anything, we form the habit of waking up. That's why it was kind of important to look at the melatonin as well, because if he can remain asleep for a period of time, that'll be very helpful to you. Finally, background white noise often helps people stay asleep. White noise is like having an air filter in the room or something that just makes, because we never know with our kids and their acute sense of hearing, they might be waking up due to something else. So, this happens to all of us. This is very, very typical, and children can continue to sleep in the parent's bed for as long as the parent allows it. Don't think that you're doing anything traumatic by not allowing him to actually come to your room, because the worst thing that worst case scenario, the air mattress can stay in his room by the door, and if he comes to you, you walk him back, he sleeps in his bed, and you sleep on the air mattress. At least he's not coming to your room. And then you gradually keep trying to exit his room. And that's how you do it. It's a shaping procedure, and you gradually have to work on it. It takes time.
I have this theory that our kids, even our kids, understand the difference between, we can say no, and we can say it in the exact same inflection, but it's almost like they can read our minds. They know when we, like, if our kids are going to put their hands on the stove and we say no, even our kids, I see them react to how we say no.
Absolutely.
And I know with my kid, if I say no to something, and in my head, I'm 100% clear that it's a no and it's not conditional, he hears that. He sees that in my body language, and he hears that. When I say no, and there's a part of me that's not 100% sure, I am like a highway, and he's going to ride all over me, right?
Yes, of course.
And I think that that helps me always to remember that I say, oh, I'm ready for him to stop doing whatever. Right. I want to do that. But the truth is sometimes I'm not all the way ready, because I'm not ready to do all the things that I have to do to get there. Right. And I think that it's really important that we as parents look at that before we do anything. Are you ready? Because Dr. Granpeesheh just gave you the master class in how you can do this when you're ready.
Right. And this is very important what you're saying, Shannon, because if you're not ready, you're going to be all wishy-washy about it and go back and forth, and it's going to confuse the child and give him the wrong message, and it's going to drag this out into a nightmare. So it will, do not expect this to go as smoothly as I just explained, because I didn't mention that, hey, your child may react and may have a tantrum, may cry, may be upset that you're not allowing them in your bed anymore. But that's okay, because you do not want him sleeping there when he's 18.
Right.
It's just that simple. So really, and it's not, you're not doing anything traumatic. He has a very comfortable bed. It's a habit. You're trying to break a habit. And so you're trying to replace what do you provide that his own bed doesn't provide? Is probably a sense of safety and security and nurturing, and you know how you felt as a baby. So you're trying to give all of that to him as well, but he has to remain in his own room. And that's certain rules are just rules. You know, it's like we teach our children to use utensils. Otherwise, hey, why can't they just use their hands? You know, so certain rules are there because they are the social norm. It's not okay for a child to be sleeping with parents when they're a teenager, obviously. And so the sooner you work on this, the better. And it is, as Shannon said, it's harder often on us. This was a big thing for me. I remember with my third child, I had a very hard time with her with various issues, and this was one of them. But it's tough. It's a really and you are wiped out. You know, you're so tired that you say, oh, forget it. It's not even worth it.
Honestly.
Yeah. But I mean, if you do it and you're pretty strict about it, and you do it like on a shaping schedule, as I mentioned, it really will be over in the course of a month, rather than going on forever.
And then you get the rest of your lives back. And, you know, we've had Uncle Milton Toys on the show before. I love Uncle Milton Toys. They make a whole line of toys that will give you just a little bit of light. I love the moon in my room because it has the phases, so you can change how much light. But they have a whole line of toys that, you know, wall hangings that will light up. Some of them even provide low sounds, soothing sounds as well. You know, go with your child, look on their website, unclemiltontoys.com, and pick one out that they find reinforcing, that they'll want to stay in the room, to be in the room with the thing. Really, really helpful. We have the moon in my room still to this day.
Dude, I love
and
it.
It's
my
beautiful.
kids had it. Oh, it's very pretty. It's a very decorative piece, and it's really nice.
Yeah, and it has an educational component to it too, so it's all good. But they have everything, including Jake the Pirate. So take a look at what they've got. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with some more questions for Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of the children and all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago. There were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me, it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books, I like to go to once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Granpeesheh. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Granpeesheh.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she is answering your questions in real time. You can go to autism-live.com to send your question in. If you have a long question, always feel free to send it directly to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com, because I know on the live feature, it only allows you 1,200 characters, I think, at a time, and sometimes that can be frustrating, but you can always send a longer question directly to me. So we had a follow-up. There was a question that we had from somebody last week that we were very excited because they wrote in and said, how can a BCBA get more information about assessments and program design, because I want to be the best that I can be. We talked about it a little on the show, and they wrote back and said, hello, Shannon, what an honor it was to have you read my question on air and ask Dr. Doreen to answer it. I'm in the process of purchasing the items and
Acclimating myself.
Acclimating myself. That's the word I want. To skills. I was overjoyed by your suggestion that I should work for CARD, and I would love to do so. They've sent me some information, and I'm gonna connect you with the person that needs to go to. So thank you for writing in, and we appreciate that.
That's
you
wonderful.
have continued
We'll
interest.
definitely get in touch.
There you go. Now, we also talked a little bit about the DSM-5 last week, and about people were writing in asking, is Asperger's still a part of the DSM-5? And somebody wrote into in the interim and said, can you tell me what the DSM-5 categories are? Is that a
So
question?
there are no categories with the DSM-5. That's why it's called ASD, because it's a broader. DSM-4 we used to have, like autistic disorder, pervasive developmental disorder, disintegrative disorder, Rett's disorder, and so on. But with DSM-5, it's all just one thing called ASD, and depending on the number of symptoms and the severity of the need, then you're on one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum, and that allows, we are allowed to rate on severity. So in my mind, the severity helps. So if you have very severe needs in the social area and very severely debilitated with self-stimulatory behaviors, with ritualistic behaviors, then you would have a 3-3 severity. That means that you have a very high need for help, support, in both the social area and in regards to your ritualistic behaviors. If you have a very mild need, then you'd be a 1-1 in those areas. So it kind of like helps me when and in fact at CARD we're doing this, we're rating all of our children based on the severity. A lot of professionals have not yet begun to use the DSM-5 appropriately or correctly. But that is essentially, to have an actual diagnosis, it says, autism spectrum disorder, needing significant support in the social area and support in the ritualistic area, that sort of thing. So it tells you the level, significant being 3 and just minimal being just support. So, and then you can do subtypes on their modifiers, such as, Asperger's type and so on. And you can also give descriptors of, behaviors in, also seeing mental retardation or also medical issues involved. But other than that, there are no subcategories anymore, and that's the main change with DSM-5.
It's kind of frustrating for I think all of us that are in the community at this point, that we're 2 years into this, and as you said, a lot of people aren't using it yet.
No.
So you might be working with a team of people, and we've had parents write in about this, that one person on the team is looking at these things and talking in terms of that. Everybody else is still on another page. The parents are someplace in between.
Oh, it's worse than that, Shannon. We have I don't even know if it's half, probably 2/3 of the insurance companies are still on DSM-4, and some of the insurance companies are requiring us to transfer all DSM-4 diagnosis into DSM-5, which shouldn't really be the case, because you're supposed to be grandfathered in, but they're requiring us, so we actually have to do a line-by-line transfer over, because you have a diagnosis of PDD, let's say, that you got 3 years ago. I don't know where you would fit in now.
Right.
So it's all these, it's causing a mess, but,
what are other choices?
what are you going to do? Yeah.
You got to play with the cards you've been dealt. So that's where we're at. And I think it's important for all of us. I get frustrated, but I think it's important for me. It's important for all of us to acknowledge the frustration and look at it and go, yeah, that's frustrating.
Absolutely.
And then find the way through it.
Yeah, and I think I've done a detailed description about the diagnostic on one of our shows. So that kind of, if you want to watch that, that'll give you a lot more information about this.
Absolutely. There are 2 hours that are devoted just to that with Dr. You can find those on our YouTube page with Dr. Granpeesheh. I'm going to move on to this next question. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My son is nearly 6 and been having ABA programs since he was 2.5. He's doing great now. But what we are struggling with for quite a while now is fluency of his speech. It's really hard for him to make a sentence and keep up with his peers in discussion. Or even answering a question takes him quite a while. He also might start a sentence and then switch or keep repeating the last word. For example, the lady said. He is great when he is describing pictures and uses variety of verbs, but when it comes to interverbals, don't I love how much you guys embrace the jargon. When it comes to interverbals, he really struggles. He also prefers to use the same phrases for the same mans. For example, asking for a drink would always be, can I have a drink, please? We are trying to shape it, but he still uses the same phrases. Thank you very much, and thank you for having an amazing show. Lots of love from the UK. And P.S., they love our new studio. Thank you. Well, love back to you in UK, and how much do I love you? Because you are clearly an on-it mom.
Yes,
right?
Definitely. No question about it. Love it. You have a lot of really good questions. I'll try to hit all of them if I can. So the first issue is fluency. Fluency, you just have to practice and time everything. It is one of the types of ABA that we do. We will really not consider something mastered unless it's fluent. So a lot of his just basic lessons that he's good at already, like, identifying actions or whatever, things that he's already mastered, make sure that he does them speed. So like he'll have a whole pile of pictures that he's describing, and he has to say, the boy is running, the girl is doing and just speed it up. And you can do that in a number of different ways. I mean, you can give him a stack and time it, and then tell him, okay, next time I'm going to put the timer on, but this time we have to do 12. Next time we're going to do 15, that sort of thing. You're speeding him up. Another way to do it is to use a metronome in the background, so that the metronome will just be something that he's comfortable with, and it kind of goes at his pace of language. It's almost like the beats of your speaking, like I am speaking right now, and this is a beat, and then I will speed it up a little bit, and then I'll have to speak a little bit faster. And so metronomes we use often to just speed up our kids. But the bigger issue here is that it's most likely processing speed that he's having a problem with. I mean, in ABA jargon, we call it fluency, but it is really processing speed. And processing speed, and it's clear he's smart, he's manipulating by trying to buy time. He's buying time when he says, the lady said, he's buying time because he's thinking when that's happening. So yeah, you've identified the issue very well, which is processing speed. So you will increase his fluency. Now, when we talk about fluency, we're talking about being so fluent, like really thinking in that language and being so comfortable with the words that we're fast, that we don't have to think about everything we say. He clearly is still thinking about it, sort of like a person who's using a second language, right? So if I speak in French or German, I definitely have issues with fluency. and I have to think what I'm saying before I say it sometimes. And so that slows me down because I'm retrieving words. So processing speed tends to increase the more you are good at word retrieval. So anything that you can do, any kind of activity, like teaching actual vocabulary, just speeding up the use of words he already knows. You know, one of the things about normal language is that even when we read things, like when you're reading something, there are certain words that you just naturally learn to skip. You're reading them, but you don't care about their meaning. We automatically learn how to pay attention to words in what we read, the words that are important. All the, to, is, are, whatever, a, all that sort of stuff we don't really pay attention to. We pay attention to the key words. So that's something you can teach. A lot of reading programs actually do teach our kids what are the key words. In fact, one of the things you could do is have him read something and highlight the important words. This will increase his processing speed. And if you even look up, I mean, this is the program that I'm working on right now, Shannon, is like processing speed to me is a very, very important key feature of how our kids do. Because on the social level, if you look at it, like I might say something to you, I mean, and I've mentioned this to you many times before, like when I used to go to Germany all the time, and I realized that, wow, I became so much more part of the social environment when I could understand German really well. So I knew what's going on around me. And then, of course, the more you speak the language, you become even further part of the social environment. And when you don't understand, or you have to think about what was just said, or think about how to express yourself, you are not part of the social environment. So this is really just, he needs more practice on the language that he's learned. So, and that is something that you just have to continue to do with his ABA. In terms of intraverbals not being as good as things that are visual, essentially you're telling me that he's having a hard time retrieving information that's abstract or that's not visually present in front of him. So perhaps start with allowing him to make himself visual cues, or gradually working with him on fading the visual cues. You're on the right track. This is everything that you describe here is what ABA does. So you have to continue to work on all of these things through all of your ABA programs. I mean, ultimately, I might teach a child blue as a very first concept. And then I might teach them to, the reason I teach them blue is perhaps because I want the child to know how to request a blue item, like give me the blue block. And then I might teach them to tact it and point out, oh, there's the blue car. And then I might teach them to describe a visual, so an intraverbal, but it's something that's present. So she's wearing a blue dress, or what is mom wearing, a blue dress, or something that is not right in front of them and they have to think about it, like what color is the sky, and it's blue. So it's all the same concept, but it's used in numerous different ways through language, and the more fluent you get, the more practice you have, the better you are. I don't know how many hours he's getting. Obviously, this is something else that happens often, is that when our kids get to this point, and this might be the key to the answer to all of this, we think they've done so well that we cut their hours. So I guarantee you that if he gets about, at age 6, somewhere close to 30 hours or so of ABA, his fluency will shoot through the roof and you'll do really, really well. So I wonder how many hours he's getting now. Okay. That would be the most important thing.
So you could up that. Just as you were talking about the processing speed, I was remembering, if you haven't seen Temple Grandin's TED Talk, there's a part in it where she talks about, because she's visual and all of our kids aren't, but she says that there's a moment when she says, when you bring up a church, that most people have like a stereotypical church that pops into their head until they get more information.
Right.
They picture one thing. Well, hers is like Googling church and all the pictures that come up, that she has 750 pictures that her brain starts to go through until you give her more information, and then it's like, going through and redefining the search, and it shortens it, but it's taken her years
Exactly.
to get to where that she can tell her mind, summarize, don't go to 500
Absolutely.
churches, come up with one typical church, and she languages that for herself. And I wonder sometimes if our kids are struggling with some of that too, that they're having to
No
cycle
question.
through everything that they know to get to the thing that you're asking for.
I mean,
it's overwhelming.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and that's a fantastic way to put it. But I find, and many years ago we realized this, I find with our kids that everything comes, okay, so first of all, everything comes at kind of the same intensity. So it's sort of like, you know how with us, like right now, of course, our language is the prepotent stimulus in this room. It's like we're talking, and that's what we're both focused on, as well as perhaps our body and facial expressions and so on. There's a lot else going on. The air conditioning just turned on, you know, the lights might flicker and so on, but we don't pay attention to any of that. With our kids, I think everything comes to them at the same level of intensity, so it's very, very difficult to ignore one thing and pay attention to the other. So there are many more stimuli coming in at the same time than there are for us. Our brain is able to filter those things out. And then when we learn content, we tend to learn it in a very organized manner. Our brains are set up in a way that we will learn. I always give the example, like you'll learn as a child, and this is what Temple talks about as well. You learn, for instance, a table, and when you're a child, you only really learn that, okay, what is it, you know, if you ask a child about a table, they'll say, oh, it's in my kitchen, or it's in our dining room, or yeah, I guess my desk is also a table as they get older, right? And oh yeah, tables can come in all different, I mean, as a very small child, you only know about a table the way that it is at your house. You don't know that tables come in glass and wood and metal and decorative and different shapes and are used for different reasons and so on. But you add on to it, you know, that's working memory, and you just keep adding on and making it more and more and so on. But you maintain a summary of it. So it's like, okay, table, a place where you can sit at and do something. Okay, you can eat or whatever it is, but it's a summary. Many years ago, I realized that our kids don't summarize the info they get. This is why one of the programs I like is sort of the visualization, verbalization program, because it allows you to describe things and then answer key aspects of it. We have a program called Summarizing, because this is, if you think about it, Shannon, the summarizing issue affects so many other things.
Absolutely.
Like it is the reason that our kids go or get distracted. It's the reason they can't retrieve information fast enough. That's the fluency issue, because there's a whole ton of descriptors and no exact, like, you know, how do I retrieve? If I ask a child, name something that is wood, table won't come up right away because it hasn't been classified there. It hasn't been summarized correctly. It hasn't been organized. Just think of your brain as kind of a library with thousands of things in there. And if they're just there, you're not going to find them. But if they're organized in some way, you will find them.
Yeah, imagine trying to search the internet without a search engine.
Exactly.
It'd be like, it would be so overwhelming.
Yeah, so that's what it is. It's the search engine.
And we can strengthen it. I mean, that's the good news.
That's the executive functions. That's what they are.
Wonderful. All right. Well, excuse me.
I went on and on about that because it was an exciting question.
No, because it is. I think that those things help us.
Right. And I just do want to address one last thing where the parent is asking for what do I do when the child is manding in the same exact way. One of the things you do is, I mean, first of all, I don't know if your child is a reader. It's very easy to change mands if you can write out a different way of manding. But you can also model it for the child verbally, and just go, I don't understand. So hold the item until the child gives you a different format of the mand.
Great. Fabulous. And then write in and let us know how all of that goes. And again, love to you in the UK. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with more questions for Dr. Doreen after these messages.
So we're going to do down dog next. So with down dog, there are several different ways that you can do it, and I want to show you first and then help you with yours so that we can work on what feels good for you, okay? All right, because there's no right way to do it. It's more about what your body likes, all right? So for me, what I'm going to do is start off with my hands at the top of my mat, my headlights. My fingers are or aiming towards the top of my mat. And then I'm going to tuck my toes, and then my head is also going to drop, and I'm going to look between my toes. Okay. And my body should be, or hopefully, like an A shape.
Or V.
Or V, yes.
Upside down V.
Yep. And so if your quads are tight or your hamstrings are tight, you might need to bend your knees a little bit.
Then it's a U.
Or if your shoulders are a little strained or a little tight, remember to push in through your feet, but also sometimes what feels really good is going down on your forearms, like this. You can actually start out this way instead, it's a little easier. So your forearms rest on the floor, you still tuck your toes, and then you're still looking between your toes, but rather than being on your hands then, your weight's along your hands and your forearms. Okay? All right. So, now it's your turn. Okay? So, yep. You're gonna do on your hands? Okay, yep. So your fingers are facing the front of the mat. Or are you doing forearms? Forearms? Okay, there we go. Wow, you're very bendy. Very nice. And your gaze is right here between your toes. Excellent. Very nice, Jem. Wow. Awesome. Feet are a nice distance apart. How does that feel?
Okay.
Awesome. You want to come down? Excellent. Good. Good.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here. She's answering your question this morning that really caught my attention. Hello, my 10-year-old has autism, anxiety, and is blind. He recently started refusing to eat foods he has always liked, for example, fruits, veggies, even French fries. He also has started sucking on foods, which I have never seen before. He usually takes big bites and I have to get him to slow down, but now he will take the tiniest sliver of a bite and take forever to eat. Where did all these behaviors come from and what can I do? And thanks a lot. And bless your heart. You're dealing with a full plate.
Yes, you are. Most of the time we change our food habits due to food aversion. So it is very possible that he ate something that caused him disturbance of some type, or caused him either pain or tasted wrong, or he had an illness shortly after, and in his mind correlated it to what he ate. Food aversion is one of the hardest forms of conditioning to break. There have been many studies on this. When something is paired with a food aversive, it almost never extinguishes. I'm not saying it won't in this case, but it is a very difficult thing. So my guess is he ate something at some point that either didn't taste well or didn't do well with him. So you're going to have to reverse this. It makes perfect sense because he is blind, that he is being cautious. He can't really see what you are giving him, and he's being very cautious in terms of eating it very slowly and in tiny amounts so that it doesn't cause the same aversion that it did the last time, or he so thinks. So and he's 10 years old. I mean, the only thing you can do is try to find, I think at this point, the one food or two foods that he does still consume readily or happily, and start there. Allow him to kind of gain his confidence back in terms of eating, and then gradually bring in those other foods that have become aversive for him. It's a pretty difficult thing, but essentially this is pre-MAC now. You're using a higher probability behavior to reinforce lower probability behaviors. So if there's other stuff that he is eating readily and he's not too cautious about, great, allow him to do those first, and then use them to, kind of bring in other stuff and make those the reinforcer. I have a feeling that if something smells good, he might eat it more freely. If it's something that has a smell that he's familiar with. because he's going, for a child who's blind, he's going to depend on some other sense to give him a sense of familiarity of what it is.
Absolutely.
And of course, allow him to and I'm sure he does already, to, you know, feel the food before he eats it.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's very
you know,
difficult.
how,
very, very difficult.
especially if you have the anxiety and are not able to see that.
Right.
It makes sense that he would suck on something to see what the edges are on it and to see what it tastes like before.
Yes, exactly. I wouldn't, and don't be too worried about this. He will gradually find his way back. He will definitely figure out that, although it might take a while, but he will find out that these things are not aversive or making him feel bad.
Okay, wonderful. Somebody wrote in and said, "Good morning, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I love your show. We love you. My adult son is a big fan of scissors. He has kid scissors, but can do a lot of damage with them. Cut up things that don't belong to him. I've made a box of things that he can cut, but will still find things in the house. He will still find things in the house to cut up. I don't want to take the scissors away, but I'd love to hear your advice. Thank you."
Yeah, I think you have to, perhaps at this point, you will need to make sure that he does not have access to scissors except for when he is monitored and using it appropriately. So at this point, you will have to take the scissors away and give them to him only when you're able to watch him and he has the box of things that he's able to cut. And you'll have to do that for a while because you kind of need to break the habit of, you know, using the scissors inappropriately. And then, of course, if he does happen to use the scissors inappropriately, he does need to be reprimanded, just like any other child. We don't learn what's not okay unless someone tells us in a way that is, we don't forget that, hey, this is not okay. You know, and for our kids, this is one of those things that is part of the safety issues. I mean, we have some lessons on teaching safety as a whole, but unfortunately with this, he's actually, I mean, the danger, there's two issues here. One is he's destroying other people's property, and the second one is that he could actually bring harm with scissors. Now, both of those have to have some sort of, I guess, punishment or some sort of retribution if he does them. So if he is destroying other people's property, then one way to do this is that you would take away something that he has and give it to the person that whose property he has destroyed. He will hate that, he will tantrum, he will be very upset, but you have to kind of put something in place, and again, I don't know the scenario, but put something in place that is not okay with him, something that he really doesn't enjoy and that he finds to be aversive. If it's a safety issue, then you really need to watch over it and make sure that he doesn't have access unless you're there, and that he's only using it with the box of items that are allowed.
Okay. We had somebody write, the UK mom wrote back in, and she said, "Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, thank you for answering my question. You are absolutely right regarding the hours. As he is in school, we are not able to do even 20 hours of ABA in a week, but now he is on holidays, and we are upping the hours, and I will definitely focus on fluency. If you get a chance, could you please provide more information on the processing program you are working on now and when it's going to be available? And thanks a lot, the UK mom."
Yeah, I would actually recommend that you go in our executive functioning curriculum on skills. Skillsforautism.com, and you go in the EF curriculum, executive functioning, and there's a whole section on fluency and attention. Just look at all of those, because those will be very interesting to you, the EF section of skills. And yeah, in you know, one of the notes I made here because of your lovely question is to touch base with our assessment, with our psychologists, because we are developing this sort of more cognitive program than behavioral.
Okay. We had another question that came in this morning. "Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I have to say the program, every question asked by the viewers applies to my son, almost like the program was made for me. Thank you. Love you guys." We love you back. Question about how an ABA therapist can be assigned when there are two children on the spectrum at the home. One is a school-age child with a lot of behaviors and on medication now, and the other a toddler with speech delay. Both very active children, both need constant redirection. My oldest was on ABA before moving to a new state, and it was difficult for me to handle, alone to handle. I wonder, when adding my youngest child who does have aggressive behaviors, how can this be possible? possible? Does it mean to have?
We would have to have the same therapist for both.
And I don't want to feel that I'm working more with one child than the other, but I feel that there's not enough of me to address them both, and thank you so much.
Yeah, and this is, I agree with you. This is one of the reasons that I'm a very strong advocate for parents in terms of, when funding agencies and educational agencies and so on expect parents to be the ones teaching everything. It's impossible. I mean, with typical children, you need help from others. Obviously, you have teachers and nannies and so on and so forth. And if you have two children who are on the spectrum or have various difficulties, it is impossible. I know that what we do at CARD here is that if you have two children on the spectrum, you have two teams. The therapists do not overlap. You have one team focusing on one child, another team focusing on another child, and sometimes they're there at the same time. We just treat it like two separate children. You, of course, are a parent, and I don't know if you have a BA going on and how you're working with the children, but please try to get behavior therapists in the house. You really desperately need the help. And also, if it's only you and another child, then split up and have the therapist work with one child and you work with the other child. But you separate the two issues, and it sounds like the kids are quite different, both in age and capability, so you do need to separate them completely. You cannot, at this point, work with the two of them together.
But eventually,
hopefully, you will easily be able to go with one person monitoring the situation, but you're just at the point where one child is aggressive, then you kind of need to separate them.
Okay, we just had a question that came in, and somebody said, please weigh in if there is time. I just got a summer schedule request, and every season there are more and more rules attached. Now we're told that clinics can only be before 3 p.m. Due to traveling to and from the office and such, my son cannot miss nearly a full day of school every second week. And they said, who's making the rules? And I know that this is something, sometimes
Thank you
just
for bringing that.
Yes,
I appreciate
sometimes
that.
you just get a rule and you don't understand where it's coming from or what's happening. So I'm glad that we had time.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that somebody brought this up. I really do. And I would like to actually know which office you're in, because that is not correct that clinics can only be before 3. What I'm guessing is that most slots after 3 are booked. So we are adjusting to the rules that are set for us. So unfortunately, it makes it a little bit harder for our parents. I completely understand, believe me. But I kind of want to give this perspective. I'm so glad that a parent brought this up, and I really appreciate your patience with this. We also are very frustrated, but here's how it goes. So we have, it starts with the insurance and various other agencies mandate that we have to use all of the hours. Obviously, we want to use all of the hours. We fought for these hours for our families. So if I request 20 hours a week for a child, I really want to provide those 20 hours to the child. Very, very often, I'm not able to. The reasons are the following. The children are in school in the mornings, and so the parents only make available to us exactly 20 hours. Now, I don't have therapists that are exactly available during the 20 hours or so that a parent offers us. In fact, all of the therapists who work at CARD are solid packed in the afternoons, and because a lot of the kids are in school in the mornings. Yeah. So we have all these therapists who don't want to stay because they're looking for a full-time job, and they're looking for morning hours, and none of our families have morning hours available. We have so many therapists who work weekends, but obviously therapists would like to have a normal life and work during work week. Yeah. But so one of the things that is very helpful to us is to have clinics which only occur twice a month or once a month in some cases during the mornings. That means, yes, you will occasionally have to pull your child out of school to bring the child to the clinic to allow the staff to meet with you for 2 hours and review the child's program. Now I ask you, I know parents are not used to this, but I ask you, if your child had braces, would you pull the child out once a month or twice a month to go see the orthodontist. Of course, we do that. My kids do, and I do that. If your child had some special other, like had to get vaccinations or had to get whatever, physical, or was physically ill, often we pull our kids out of school in the morning in order to do something that's very important. For parents, you have to recognize that ABA is probably the most important thing you're doing for your child right now. So it is important that you help us in providing all of those hours. Another thing that like really is very difficult for us is that parents will say, oh, I really want my child in a social activity, so we have basketball practice, so I can't do therapy from 2 to 4 on this day. Nothing should take priority over your ABA therapy. Your ABA therapy is the most important thing. So, you know, this is just one of those situations that where we're not just imposing rules on you to be unfair. If we don't use all of the hours that have been given to us, that have been funded for us, your next cycle, which is 6 months or a year from now, when your insurance company will renew your funding, they will cut those hours. So the way that insurance companies look at it, they say, you're not using it, that means you don't need it. And so therefore, we're not going to fund it, we're going to give you fewer hours. So we have to use the hours we've requested, not only because of that, obviously because it's the best outcome for your child. So we really, really want to use those hours, and we need your help. We would love to be able to give you therapists in the afternoons, but as I said, that's when the therapists are doing therapy. Yeah. And if we pull them in for a clinic, then they're missing, your child or some other child is missing tons of hours.
And it might be 5 therapists at the same time missing all that opportunity.
Exactly. For your child's clinic, then 5 other children are missing sessions. Yeah. Now, what I need parents to really understand is that all we're really asking for is a 4-hour, maybe 3-hour commitment per month of pulling the child out, bringing them to the location so that we can do clinics. The other issue is coming to the centers. Truthfully, I know that it requires a little bit of drive time, but the truth is that center-based services allow us, if you can bring your child to the center, that allows us to have back-to-back sessions. That means the therapist is not spending hundreds of hours on the road. These are valuable and trained professionals who really need to be spending their time working with the kids.
Instead of driving.
And they're driving all over the place. And I have to be very honest, there are 2 reasons that therapists leave. One is their schedule, which means they don't have morning hours or they have huge gaps in their schedules. Okay. And the second one is the amount of driving and the toll that it puts on their cars and their lives and so on. So we're really just asking parents to be helpful with this. You know, I remember, Shannon, when I first opened my first office, and all the families that I had, maybe 10 or 15 families at that point, found it very difficult to actually come to the office once a month or once every week or second week. A lot of families have been doing this for years and years. Others are just not accustomed to it. I understand it's further for some parents. And, you know, that's why we're opening more locations to be able to help all the parents. But we really ask for your help with this because I know it's a little bit of a burden on you, and we don't want to put more of a burden on our families. But we're trying to do everything we can to not lose our therapists and to efficiently use their time. That's really the answer.
And I go as a parent, and we're way out of time. We have to get you out of here. But I will say to you, as a parent, having been through this, I would say to you, this is another one of those things, like we said at the beginning of the show, it's frustrating because you're having to choose between my child goes to clinic or my child goes to school, and you don't want to have it be that one has to go 1 day a week. I get totally with you on the frustration of it. But one thing that really helps is when you set your priorities and you say, here's what's most important to me, here's what's most important. We all know for our kids with autism that it's really important for them to be in school, but they couldn't be in school and be successful in school without the ABA. So I would encourage you to put the ABA well above school for these years. And if you do, you'll find that later on, then school is the priority when it needs to be. It's a hard choice, and it hurts.
That's right.
But you got to set your priorities. with that field that we've been set, and there are limitations because of the field.
And I want to thank our existing families who are center-based. I mean, I have a quarter of our hours, 25% of our hours currently are being provided at card centers. And I really want to thank our families who are willing to bring their children in and allow us to provide the therapy there. Those kids are doing fantastically well.
Yes, if you are a card family that hasn't done the center base, talk to one of the families that has to see the benefits that they're getting from it. It has benefits for the kid, and it also has benefits for you as parents. It really does.
Right.
We're so out of time, but we
thank you so much
a lot
for
of fun.
being
here.
I apologize for not being here next week.
I hadn't broken it to them yet,
Yes.
but Dr. Granpeesheh won't be here next week. We should note that she's not going to be here because she has to go to Washington, D.C. on behalf of all of us, and we defer greatly to that need.
Thank you very much. No, that's actually, and I know we're out of time, but I want to say that it's because there's a meeting to discuss TRICARE, and I want to really kind of give kudos to the military because they really do put a lot of effort into making these TRICARE policies be something good for our kids. I know that sometimes the military families feel like they're not getting the right benefits, but the truth is, in my mind, in my opinion, from looking at TRICARE benefits and other insurance companies, they're doing a fantastic job, and they're really working very hard to try to hear us and do what's important.
And it's important that we make sure that somebody is there to be heard who knows what they're talking about.
That's what we're doing.
And that is Dr. Granpeesheh. Right. So she won't be here next week, but we'll figure out something. Maybe we'll play one of those episodes of the DSM-5 since that's what everybody has been asking questions about. But we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was great.
We're going to take a break here and go to the A word. And when we come back, it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is here. We've got some great news stories for you. And Vince Redmond, licensed marriage and family therapist, is going to be with us. We're going to talk about bonding and apron strings and how these things work and we're also going to talk a little bit about soccer. So stick with us, but here first is the A word.
A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W,
Talking a lot this morning.
Now I down my pieces. Next time,
Won't you?
no say with me.
That's right, kiddo. Very good. Okay, Jack Riley, one more minute. Say okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to play something else for now? What do you want to play?
Hey, pancake.
You want to play pancakes? Oh, is this the sign for pancakes? What do you want to work for, Jack Riley? Do you want to work for puzzle, for trains, for jumping on the bed? What do you want to work for? More jumping? Okay.
Pancake. Pancake.
Okay. Sit down. Sit down here, though.
Pancake.
You want pancakes? Did you say that better? Say, I want pancakes.
I want pancake.
Should we go see where the pancakes are then? Okay, all right. Let's go find Dad. Come on. Come with me. Walk with me. And we'll go find Dad, okay? All right. Can you open the door? Turn. There you go. Nice. Let's go see where those pancakes are. Say, I'm hungry. Ask you quick questions, okay? All right. Okay, look. Okay. What's your name? No. What's your name? Nice job. How old are you? Good job. Sit down, though. Okay. Where do you live?
Jessica teaches Jack Riley other social ID questions such as where do you live and what's your last name.
There you go. Nice job. Here you go. Slow down. There you go. Hi.
You look cute. I love you.
Group kiss. Group kiss. Ready? 1, 2. Oh, nice hands.
Nice hands. Nice hands. Nice hands. That's
Nice hands.
Nice hands get you more attention than bad hands.
Big brother. Who's big brother?
Who's a big brother?
Yes.
Yes.
Where's the little sister?
Where's little sister?
Where? Is she here? Is that
Right
little sister?
there.
There she
That's right.
Can she have a kiss? Can little sister have a kiss? Thank you.
I'll hope. We'll hope.
Jack Riley is needing less prompting to appropriately gain attention. Jessica only gestures to get him to ask. They introduced the skill about 7 weeks ago, and it's becoming less contrived and is occurring naturally in situations. Here's a look from 7 weeks ago, when Jessica first introduced gaining attention. In the beginning, she tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the whole way, gesturing and physically showing him what to do and what to say.
Jessica, I want pancakes.
Want pancakes?
Hey, look at me when you say it. Say, I want pancakes.
Want pancakes?
As time goes by and the skill becomes more natural, the prompting will completely fade away.
Ready? Okay, show them how you can use a straw. You gotta go all the way. Show me. There you go. Good job.
Feeding used to be very time-consuming and difficult for Cheryl and Mike. Jack Riley would swat away food fed to him and would refuse to self-feed. He now feeds himself and even uses a fork. His diet, though, is still limited, but it's growing. Drinking has also been an issue for Jack Riley. He's typically only drank out of baby bottles or bottles with a hard nipple top. They've tried getting Jack Riley to drink from a cup, but every time they would present it, he would try to lap it up like a cat, anticipating all the fluid to come rushing at him. Now they have introduced drinking from a straw, so he has an item to drink from that is age appropriate.
Now suck it up. You want to do that again?
Yeah.
Want to do that again?
One more time, and then you can play.
Okay.
Very good, Jack.
You guys got that exact same pitch level there. I don't know how you duplicate.
Do you want the purple iPhone?
Papa.
Okay.
Okay, what's the matter?
You can have applesauce.
Hey.
You can have it. You can have it. Come here. Can you show me? Bite for mommy.
Your turn. Do you not? Jack Riley said, I don't want banana.
Okay. What do you want then? What do you want then? I want.
Okay.
We have a spoon, Daddy.
One of the food items Jack Riley eats a lot of are bananas. For some reason, though, seeing a banana really upsets Jack Riley. He enjoys eating it, but hates the sight of it. One of the issues is that biting solid food is very aversive to him.
Fear of the banana. Someday we'll tell him he eats one every day.
More awareness than it was in the yogurt, so we have to go in baby steps with it. That's fine with me.
This is history. I might drink the whole thing.
With like no prompting, no.
Spit off
Yeah,
this.
you're right.
Okay, kiddos. See ya. Have a good weekend.
Say thanks, Miss Jessica.
You say bye. Can you say bye, Jessica?
Look at her.
Bye, Jessica.
Where is Jessica? Where is Jessica? There she is.
Just in case you were wondering.
You're Jessica. You are.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great weekend,
See ya.
Jessica.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and this is my friend
Shannon Penrod. Glad to be your friend.
I'm glad to be your friend.
That's a really exciting
You're
thing
one
to
of
me.
my rocks.
And you're one of mine.
I have rocks in the world that I depend on, and you're one of the biggest rocks there is.
Sounds like I'm a big, heavy, plodding.
No, it means you never crack, and I can
that's
always
not
go to you to shoulder burdens that I'm carrying.
That you can always do.
Yeah.
Always
And I hope you
willing
feel
to
the same
listen.
way about me.
I absolutely do. We'll talk to each other. We'll call. And there's always like a time of day where we'll call. Yesterday it was like, "How are you?" And I said, "Oh, peachy." And she said, "Okay, what's going on?" right?
Yeah,
And we both-
and I knew you had an IEP coming up, and I said, isn't that response supposed to be after the IEP?
Yeah, well.
Oh, just peachy. Well, you
Just
know things
ducky.
aren't peachy.
Just ducky, peachy fuzz. Isn't it all wonderful?
Yeah.
Yay! Because sometimes it's not. But anyway, but it's good to laugh about it.
It is. We do a
Always
lot of that around
keeping
here.
a sense of humor about stuff.
Speaking
Yes.
of laughter, a woman who thinks she makes a lot of people laugh, I guess, that I have to say, I have never seen Katie Hopkins, who's out of England. And,
Right.
and she was on The Celebrity Apprentice in England, is my
guess.
understanding. And she was a very divisive character and kind of shot to fame from that. And then became a columnist.
And as somebody who is known for making incendiary comments, we have
Yes.
people like that here in the United States.
Of course
I always say, this is a perfect example of attention-seeking behavior,
Yeah,
right?
Donald Trump, let's face it.
And how many other folks do we have attention-seeking behavior
Yeah.
where they'll say something and it gets in the news and
They love that.
there's a business of that.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's the way that they keep their business running.
Yeah, as Hedda Hopper said, she was a Hollywood columnist, the only bad publicity is your own obituary.
There we go.
So some people subscribe to that.
Yes, and apparently Katie Hopkins does. And, we covered a couple of weeks ago that people thought that she had taken it too far. But then after this new tweet that she did, that apparently there's a reality show there with a child who's on the autism spectrum. And she tweeted, and the tweet said, "Honey can't complete the autism assessment as she is too busy being a complete." It starts with a T. It's not a word I'm going to say here on the air.
And ends with a T,
Yeah,
with
ends with a T.
two letters in the T.
But the S
Blank
mom assessment is complete. And then the hashtag was born naughty. And I think that the hashtag upset more people than all the other stuff.
Right.
Because it sounded like, that it appeared that, it's not really an autism issue. She was born naughty.
Well, but the name of the documentary is Born Naughty.
Oh, okay. That I didn't get.
Yes.
That I didn't get.
It's a Channel 4 documentary, Born Naughty. And the child was, and I don't know that maybe they were trying to figure out if the child was autistic.
Yeah.
But she was a 9-year-old girl. And so she did say, she basically defamed the mother.
Yeah.
Said she was a S
Yeah.
ending with a T, mum. And she said to me a very derogatory term about the little girl. She's too busy being a complete TW with a letter in between there and ends with a T. So you're attacking these two people.
Right,
and
right,
let's
right.
face it, when you're in the midst of whatever, this apparently they were doing assessments, you're going through holy hell.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm glad you caught me on the born naughty thing, because what I was reading in the comments from the people here in the United States, they were objecting to that.
Ah, well, it is the name of the
it is the name of the thing.
docuseries.
So we all
Yeah.
need to take a step back on that. But
Okay.
in the interim, in all the firestorm that's happening in UK, Katie has come back out and said that she has a child who's on the autism spectrum. And then everybody immediately stepped back and said, okay, well, we would like to welcome her to a community and perhaps give her some information about how everybody else feels. But it's very interesting to me that, having said that, everybody took 3 steps back and cut her a bunch of slack, I feel like. Did you feel like that from reading the
Yeah, and I don't
articles?
know that she should have been cut slack.
I
I think she
so
should have been
either.
more sensitive.
If you're an autism mom and you say inappropriate things about another child with autism, that's still not okay.
To me, that's worse, because you
Yeah,
should have some
you should
sort of
know better.
empathy. Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that she went on to say, I found some of these comments unsensitive. One of my daughters is diagnosed as being on the spectrum. It's an awesome thing to live with a child who can memorize a times table in 2 minutes. They don't get things emotionally. Like when I fell off my bike and I was lying on the floor, she was asking what was for tea. But they do connect brilliantly with facts and details. Not all of them, Katie. I consider it a kind of a gift because you can see the world differently. And yes, there are gifts with autism, we all know. But I found those remarks to be a little flippant and a little on the surface.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what her circumstances are with her kid, but bad behavior is bad behavior out of adults. And when that is turned towards kids, whether they're on the spectrum or not, it's not appropriate. And having this pass that because she also has a kid on the spectrum, that doesn't give you and I carte blanche to go and say things about her kids. That would be wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
So,
hands down, Katie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thumbs down.
So Science Daily just reported this week that autism and ADHD run high in children of chemically intolerant mothers. Now, what is really interesting to me is that this was based on a test that they gave a lot of mothers that is something that we had talked about on the show 2 years ago, in fact, because one of the investigators, Dr. Miller, was somebody that we went and saw at an ARI conference, and she had us doing the Queasy. We did this this test with mothers and said on the show and said, do you find this, this, and this? And it wasn't part of the study, obviously, but we talked through the Queasy on the show. But a lot of moms filled it out as part of the study and reported that they have issues with environmental, toxins, that if they're exposed to chemicals, that they have autoimmune stuff.
Okay.
This is the kind of thing that you and I have talked about many times, is that so many moms of kids on the spectrum have autoimmune issues and have intolerances to chemicals.
Right.
And they found clearly, and this is no surprise to us, but autism and ADHD are much more prevalent in children whose mothers already have issues.
Chemical intolerances, yes. Once more, the environmental link, evidence stronger than ever before. And let me just clarify, the Queasy, I thought you meant it was spelled queasy. And
no.
Did you get queasy of certain things? It's QEESI, and that stands for the Quick Environmental Exposure and Sensitivity Inventory. So that's a 50-question survey used by physicians worldwide to diagnose chemical intolerance. Now, where do you get that test?
It was online. There was probably a link to it on the piece that we did, which I think is titled "Are You Tilted?" Because that, when you are somebody who has those intolerances, it's referred to as being tilted, which also stands for something else, but that I can't remember off the top of my head. And we went through the questions on the show. So look on our YouTube page if you're interested in that. Search tilted, and it should be able to come up. We'll try to find it.
Okay.
I'm certainly one of those moms, chemically intolerant,
and
fully tilted.
As I've said many times, Wyatt was adopted at birth, and I'd be curious to see if his birth mother had any of these issues. So I don't know if I can find that out, but it might be something I explore. Okay, now this one went over my head.
It's over all of our heads,
Okay.
but we want to at least let people know about it. It's the idea of looking at altered neural computation in autism. They're really looking deep into the brain and looking at the way your brain organizes things and talks, my understanding of it, but if you're a science person, definitely check it out. This is something that was reported in the Medical Express. It's Baylor College of Medicine, and they're speculating that autism, we're looking for what is the difference always, right? And they're saying that autism may arise from global differences in neural computation.
Okay.
Their study has recently
So the way the brain connects from cognitive, motor, and perceptual levels, is that what it is?
I think that and the way we organize information.
Okay.
And we were just talking a little bit about that with Dr. Granpeesheh, the way in which your brain takes information, pulls it up, does things that it appears to be, that on a very basic level appears to be quite different. Because, we're always looking at what is the difference. And they're seeing a difference in the neural computation. And that study is in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. So check it out.
A lot of scientific terms.
Oh, it's so...
Maybe you will understand them better than us.
Yes.
Now, this one was another one that was interesting to me because, well, let's talk about it first, and then I just want to point out there seems to be some hypocrisy, I think, in our world because so many so-called experts have sort of poo-pooed the lack of nutritional issues in our children and certain diets and supplementation. And now experts are calling for greater attention to autism-related nutrition problems, and this is out of Autism Speaks.
Yep.
It said that a review of published research emphasizes the need to address significant nutritional issues among people with autism across their lifespan. And they said that the VP for medical research, Paul Wang, was not involved in this study, but the authors are absolutely right that we need to focus on the nutritional needs of adults, both the adequacy of current diets and the possible consequences of nutritional deficiencies that may have been experienced in childhood. And it goes on to say that specific vitamin deficiency of note, the report cites a number of studies that have found low levels of folate, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12. Yet, I have to say, in my experience, there has been a lot of, oh, these supplements don't make a difference and diet doesn't make a difference in sort of a more mainstream medical, and now it seems like they're coming around to that.
Well, we know for a long time there have been people who've come on our show and said the studies are there. They're just little, but there's tons of them that show that nutrition and what you eat has an effect. And it's common sense. You know, we know that there is a brain-gut connection.
Sure.
Otherwise, you could drink a thing of beer and your brain would say the same, right? So there is absolutely a brain-gut connection. It's just common sense. And more studies have amassed, right? And some things have changed over at Autism Speaks, and we've had Dr. Wang on the show. He's the one who, he came on the show to talk about the fact that for the first time Autism Speaks was putting out, asking for people to write in. They were giving away potentially $2 million in grants to study gut issues for the first time. And so I'm excited about Dr. Wang being there at Autism Speaks. I'm excited that he's paying attention to these things because let's face it, they have the biggest megaphone. And if Autism Speaks starts saying, look at these studies all together, we're going to have a better chance of having our individual doctors paying attention to the fact that this is not something that autism moms cooked up on a Tuesday when we had nothing else to do.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I mean, all of us know that I would say the predominance of our children when they were younger had very picky eating. We know they're attracted to wheat and dairy. We know that they are very selective. We know they have sensory issues. So it's obvious that if they're not getting protein, they're not getting vegetables, they're not getting fruit, vegetables, and all the things that provide the more massive amounts of nutrients, there's going to be some deficiencies there. And when we start rounding out their diet better, which is can require Herculean efforts,
absolutely,
that we do see some improvement in behaviors.
Yes, but I will say my one little asterisk to all of this is that very soon we're going to be doing a big show just devoted to MTHFR, which is a genetic thing that apparently is more prevalent than I thought in our autism community. It is a genetic difference that makes it impossible or difficult, and there are several different kinds of it I'm finding out, to process folinic acid the way other people who don't have the MTHFR gene issue. And that if you are even eating grains that are that have their fortified grains, like a fortified cereal, that it can prevent you from getting better. It's actually that they're seeing that a lot of these women that are tilted, that we just talked about, that their children are more likely to have autism, that they didn't have these symptoms until they started taking their prenatal vitamins, which had the folinic acid in it, the folate that we wanted to make sure that our kids didn't have spina bifida, but that it builds up in your system because your body can't process it and it becomes toxic. So I'm going to make a big push for us all to get tested and to get our kids tested.
And who does the MTHR?
Well, the only place that I'm aware of right now is Great Plains Laboratory does an MTHFR, but there needs to be more places doing the testing. So because it's really important that we know who needs to be aware of this, because a simple change in diet and some different supplements can make the world of how you feel, apparently. So we're going to be doing some shows on that. But until then, just become aware of what you are eating and if it's fortified before you get the testing.
Yeah. Now, I know you've done shows on how to help kids that are picky eaters, correct?
Yes.
I mean, I'd like to do that again here on Let's Talk
Let's do
Autism.
it. Let's do
because
that.
I'm trying to, it was a major victory getting Wyatt off, chicken nuggets, cheese, and pasta. But what we did initially was we went to the gluten-free, dairy-free substitutes.
Right.
And then started trying to slowly bring in foods that were more nutritional,
Yes.
which, now he'll eat almost any protein, but the vegetables are still a huge issue, mostly because of texture issues, sensory issues. So I would like to,
Absolutely, because we've had multiple times experts on talking about, but one of the biggest things that they say that you've experienced before is exactly what I did in the meatballs that I gave you.
Right.
That you take the vegetable, grind it up, and put a small amount of it in the thing that they will eat, and then gradually increase that over a period of time.
And they'll develop a taste for it.
They will develop a taste for it until eventually you get to the point where they're eating the thing you thought they would never
Well,
eat.
I never thought my child would eat green beans and carrots, so that was a major victory.
Right, it's possible, but we'll do a whole show on that.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're way past time. Vince is waiting for us.
Okay.
Where are we? So we have Vince Redmond, who's going to be with us in just a few minutes, licensed marriage and family therapist, also a soccer fanatic. If you're watching the last hour, we had a question about a soccer thing, and Dr. Granpeesheh said, make sure you ask Vince Redmond about that. But Vince is going to be talking with us about bonding and what the boundaries are and how do we set boundaries, how do we make it healthy on both sides. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hey, welcome back to Autism Live. We heard you. Everybody wants
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, but we're gonna make it allergy free. But here's what's the crazy part of this macaroni and cheese. It's actually healthy.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes really good.
That's the most important part.
So we're gonna start. We got our water boiling. There's so many variations on the pasta. We're using today a corn pasta. We can verify with the manufacturer that we have a GMO-free product. So let's go ahead and put that in there.
Ooh,
and if you don't mind, stir that up for me,
Sure.
my friend.
Now it's sticking a little bit to the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
We maybe add a little more high heat oil and spread that around again. One thing you gotta know about gluten-free pasta, if you overcook this, it becomes mush. Let's move this guy over to the other burner so you can see what I'm doing. And now we're gonna start with the old macaroni and cheese sauce. What's great is there's a lot of choices for, different soups. And the way that I look at soups, and again, please follow the recipe on your screen right now. I don't like to measure very often. But what I like to use is a creamy butternut squash soup. So this soup is great because it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, but also gives people another serving of vegetables. With kids, we don't want to over season. Maybe with the adults, we can season some for the kids first, pull it out, serve them, and then add a little more, garlic powder or onion powder or other types of things into your dish. So the next most important thing on this recipe is we're going to add in a thickener and the faux cheese. Now some people like their sauce really thick, so you just add in more cornstarch or more arrowroot, so that's not a big deal. How's that doing? You think it's ready?
I think it's done.
Okay, so why don't we switch? I'll take that, you do that.
Okay.
And I'm going to strain this bad boy here. Here, let me turn that off.
Okay.
Or we're going to cause trouble again.
Trouble in Lisa's kitchen.
Yeah, no.
That's another show.
Don't, yeah, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get this all strained. It's a good consistency. So I'm going to check to make sure our pasta is cooked. So really you just want to make sure, just like any pasta, it's a little bit squeezy, a little bit. Nice. Dude, good job.
Yay.
We're good.
Looks yummy.
So even though the cheese is not totally melted, it's okay. Don't panic. What's important is that you're going to love this recipe once you eat it. What I enjoy most about this recipe is that it smells good, but this stuff is amazing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to serve you some up, and you can maybe blow a little bit on it so you don't burn your mouth. Sorry, I'm once a mom, always a mom.
Just like we tell our kids.
I know, right?
Oh, and I can't wait. I'm excited.
So I'm going to give a shot of this too. But
oh my gosh, that is so good.
This is the ultimate comfort food. So
oh, it's so
isn't
good.
it good?
And I'm not just saying that. It is really good. It literally tastes like something our kids would really like, and that sweetness is really, really, really good.
So the bonus for us is that when we're serving this to our kids, they're actually getting a full serving of vegetables in this. So instead of just eating a bunch of carbs and worthless calories, you're actually getting some good stuff in this. And we'll be back next time. I hope you join us again here on Autism Live. We're really loving the feedback, and if you have additional feedback, here's how you get it to us. You can send it to us via email at autismlive@gmail.com. On Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And also there's thousands of recipes waiting for you to discover them with pictures and different things on the Taka website. So you can hit Taka on the web, takanow.org, and we'll be back. Hopefully we'll get to do this again.
I had so much fun.
Maybe we'll have a little wine, but you got to join us next time. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Bye guys, we're gonna keep eating.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy and I are thrilled because we have Vince Redmond. He's been waiting patiently. Vince is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's joining us via Skype. He is also, if you were watching the last hour, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh sang his praises, and rightly so. Vince is someone, in addition to being a licensed marriage and family therapist, has been working in the field of autism and being an ABA therapist for multiple decades. He's featured in the film Recovered, one of the therapists working with the kids in that film. And Vince, to your many, many attributes, she tells us that you are also a soccer expert enthusiast. So thrilled to know that. I did not know that about you. And we had a question. We're going to get to the topic that we say, but we had a question in the last hour for Dr. Granpeesheh, and she said, ask Vince that question. They wrote in and said, my son is 5, and at a typical preschool, they play soccer a lot, and he gets lost in zones because he doesn't understand the basic of the games. We tried to put, he zones out. Now I get it. I thought it was a soccer term, zones. Okay, I'm with the program now. We tried to put him in soccer shots, but it was too hard to keep up for him. It was outside, and he got distracted and frustrated and started crying. I was in the other building, so I saw all of this unfold. How can I help him with this? And thank you. So be a wise one, Vince. Let us know what can we do to help our kids.
Switch the hat, put coaching hat on.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's, especially at that age group, it's very difficult just to get typical developing kids to pay attention more than 3 seconds, right, and to focus on the balls. And so you exacerbate that with, a child that's on the spectrum and having, difficulties being able to, process and filter out all of the distractions and distractors that are going on in their environment. It could be very overwhelming. And you want to take the approach the same way we approach therapy, right? You want to start one-to-one. Let's start with the least amount of distractions, not a lot of kids running around, not a lot of noise, not a lot of, other things that might be getting in the way, and teach them just the basics of what they're supposed to be doing. Right now, it's kick the ball straight, aim it towards the goal, dribbling, and and then sometimes shooting it into a little net. No, it's nothing more than that. You're not getting into strategies or specific rules or anything like that. The kids at this age, especially when they're just starting off, you want to build their confidence. You want to build, the idea of fun before you get into some of the rules, regulations, and things like that. So my suggestion would be first is just to start working on dribbling, looking at the ball, kicking the ball, dribbling the ball straight, dribbling the ball at a target. Doing that in your backyard, doing it in the living room, doing it, depending on where you live, doing it at the parks, and doing it, starting at one-to-one, giving some of those just fundamental basic skills, get the child a little bit more understanding of what they're supposed to do, and then build it up into now sharing that or using the natural environment to start expanding that skill.
And Vince, I so appreciate that. We also had a mom here, that's one of our favorite moms, write in and mention that here in California that there are lots of parks that, in addition to having a soccer league, they have soccer clinics, and they have opportunities for kids to go and just practice a skill. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we have that in all the parks across the country, but it sounds like that might be a good thing based on what you said as well.
There's also special needs soccer.
Right. Right.
I mean,
AYSO is a
Wyatt plays
very,
special needs
very good
baseball.
soccer organization that has the buddies and the VIP programs for
VIP.
our kids and kids that are on the spectrum that specifically set up games and schedules and practices for kids with disabilities. And oftentimes for our kids, they take that breakdown method and they work with them one-to-one as they lead them into games and different situations. And AYSO is national, so that's across the nation.
Correct.
Well, great.
AYSO is national, and Wyatt has done their programs. Soccer was a bit too confusing for him, and basketball was. He settled into baseball, and we find for him, you know, one-on-one karate he loves. But you know, I do think that it sounds like she might want inclusion, but at the same time, maybe she could transition him from a AYSO, then get him to learn the basics, and then transition.
Yeah. Well, and even if you think, we always talk about how our kids need more. So let's say that you want him because he's in preschool and he's there and he's doing it with the preschool kids. They're getting a certain amount. Now you're going to double that to give your child, and you can put them in the AYSO so that they're getting all that more opportunity. So when they are playing with the kids at the preschool, they've had that much more opportunity to learn it.
Correct.
Right.
All right, moving on. We wanted to talk with you this week about bonding and attachment and apron strings on both sides of the equation. Because I think in my case, it's more me than my child. But Nancy, you had
in my case, I think it's equal, my child and me.
Okay.
And I think that because of some unique situations in my family, with my husband having had an illness, and he spends most of his time with me. And I find this a lot with single moms, Vince, that their children on the spectrum are with them literally, aside from sleeping, and sometimes even when they're sleeping, they're sharing the family bed. The child is with them by nature of the disorder. They're with them so much that, you know, you have to be with them. And very few parents, very few moms trust other people to be with their children, because you're want to make sure that their behavior interventions are going well, that if they're on a special diet, that, you know, that all those things are being adhered to. So I was going to ask you, first of all, do you find that it's very common with kids with autism and the fact that they don't socialize often with their peers, that they are oftentimes spending the bulk of times with parents?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that happens with a lot of our kids is they spend more, you know, they're used to spending more time with adults than they are with children.
Yes.
Right? Either it be therapists, it be family members, it be parents. Their time outside of maybe siblings is spent with adults. And so they manage better with adults. Adults are a lot more nurturing, understanding, but yet adults also prompt a lot. Right, and we direct a lot, and we guide the kids to what they need to be doing. Now, when they're younger, that's what we're supposed to do. We're training them, we're teaching them, we're educating them, and we're moving them. But at some point, we have to make a decision versus, you know, independence versus dependency. When do we start making the child do things on their own? Start making decisions on their own. Start failing. Really start making decisions that don't work, rather than protecting and always being the one that they depend on. And that's a tough situation, because there's so much variable and variance that goes into that. Age of the child, level of severity, level of abilities, family members, family dynamics. You know, there's so many different things that go into that. But there needs to be a collaboration. There definitely needs to be discussions with the supervisor and the family to discuss when is it time to pull back, and how do we systematically do that so that the child is learning independence, learning skills, and learning how to be on their own, but not in a way that's too overwhelming, too frightening, and too dramatically different. Right. And then it helps the families as well, because then you guys have, you know, kind of a blueprint on how systematically you can start fading back and feel confident with that, rather than feeling lost on when and how.
Well, do you have any tips for, you know, how parents can start giving their children more independence and a little bit more, maybe some areas that kids can do on their own? Let's say, as they're getting, they're past certainly past the toddler years and the early elementary years, but they're starting to get up in the tweens and the early teens. Are there things that a parent can start doing with their child and have them do them independently?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is adaptive and leisure skills, right? Having them making sure they're caring for themselves, either it be choosing their own clothes, making sure they're following their own morning routines, making their own snacks, making their own, I mean, depending on age again, starting to make their own meals, starting to prepare their own foods, being able to choose and appropriately interact with different types of leisure activities that again would be valuable and appropriate. These types of things you can start at a preteen age as they're approaching their teenage years. If we're looking at increasing their individualization, increasing their abilities to be more independent, we oftentimes start with just our adaptive living skills, right? Being able to get dressed, being able to go potty by themselves, being able to wash their hands by themselves, right? We start this at a very young age, and we anticipate that they're going to continue doing that on their own. But when we get into like meal preparation and we get into choosing what to wear for school or for outings, getting to prepare for a trip or an activity, that's, I think, where when we get to those pre-teen ages or in the early teenagers, this is where we need to start having them be able to be more functional, more independent, be able to do these types of things on their own.
But what about things like you see typical kids doing? Like in my neighborhood, I see kids that I think, wow, they're so young to be riding their bike by themselves. Mm-hmm. And they're so young to be walking down the street alone. And, they look like they're 8, 9 years old. And, I wouldn't let Wyatt walk down the street alone to the mailbox or ride his bike down the street. It's so hard to know when you're maybe being overly protective.
Well, and you have to look at, the specific situation, environments, communities and stuff like that, and start giving some of that, being able to walk to the mailbox by themselves, being able to walk down to the neighbor's house by themselves, being able to ride their bike to the park that might be just around the corner, those types of things that are within reason, but also within
Shannon and I are looking at each other like.
I was so with you, Vince. I was like, yes, walking to the mailbox, we do that. And
we
doing
or
this.
Just he?
No.
Oh, your mailbox.
We allow, but it's it's one house down.
Okay.
And we get out of the car, and I walk to the house, and he walks to the mailbox.
Okay.
And he does that on his own, and that's a big deal in the last year that we do that.
Right.
So you were like walking me into the pool, Vince, and I was like, yep. And then you said, or ride your bike to the park around the corner, and I made a face. That Nancy was like, oh, you lost Shannon. Yeah.
Well,
I was like, on what planet am I going to do that?
But that's the thing, is looking at your environments and kind of setting up geographic locations that the child knows the directions for. It's not too far. It's back and forth. It's something that they've routinely done before. That would be, a safe way to start letting them have a little bit, have a little bit more wings and be able to fly a little bit further from home. Now, again, that's using logic and reason. We're not going to send them to a park a mile away or have them go to a pool that, is a community pool with, nobody that they're going to know or something like that. But I think looking at everyone's environments, there's always different geographic points that we can expand to, like, again, down the street, around the corner, a different block, those types of things. Now, mode of transportation, I leave that up to you guys.
Well, yeah, but what were you going to say, Shannon?
I just, and I appreciate all of this, Vince, because I think it's exactly, what the thing is those baby steps for both of us.
Right.
That's the way we get to success. And I'm always looking at, whenever we have guests on, in fact, Monica Holloway has been a huge inspiration to me, that I watch the baby steps that she took with her son until Will's now drives. Now, the idea of my child driving away in the car, but I remember Monica going through, and she's like, well, we're not there today. Today we're teaching him, how to turn on the left blinker, and I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Right.
But she, walked herself across the bridge, so Will's drives now. And I think that that's exactly it, Vince, that even as you were saying, you go to the mailbox, that's the page I'm on right now. And maybe in 2 years from now, like 2 years ago, if you had said to me, let him walk to the mailbox, you probably would have had to sedate me. But maybe in 2 years from now, I'll be going, yeah, Vince, he rides the bike to the park. It's no big deal. Can't imagine that, but I couldn't imagine him going to the mailbox.
Right. So baby steps. The other thing that I think is often...
Also start thinking of the next step, right? What is the next? Don't wait for the next step. Think about what is the next step. What is going to be the next, location or geographic marker that he can go to? Is it to the corner? Is it to a neighbor's house that's a little bit further away?
Right.
Those types of
and
things.
And my immediate reaction is, don't push me. Right.
The other thing, though, that Vince, that tends, for me anyway, that tends to be a problem is letting him go to somebody else's house for a play date without me. Because I've been so used to being, I guess, the helicopter parent in those situations. Wyatt's on a special diet. He can't really have sugar. He's on a GFCF diet. I'm afraid that he's going to get into the pantry or they're going to serve him something and he's going to eat it and he's going to come home a mess. Is that a fear? Well, your child is trained not to eat any of that.
No, but we were able to start so early with Jem. He asks questions, but I never worry. There was one time that we were on a play date at a park, and the kids walked a little ways away from us. It was an enclosed park, and I saw something happening with pockets. And I thought, what on earth is going on? And ran up to them, and one of the kids had offered my child a piece of candy, which I had not expected, right? And he said, no, I told him I don't eat that. Because he doesn't have sugar. So, and he was just beginning to be verbal at that point. So that was exciting to me. He's really good on that boundary. But,
he has that boundary.
But he might turn 16 and decide that he's going to go eat a pound of chocolate. We don't know, right? I expect at some point he'll rebel. But to date, he's been really good about being aware of what he can and cannot have and policing himself. And
well, Wyatt's aware of it, but he, given the first opportunity to cheat, will.
Yeah.
And it's, we're working on that in therapy to instill that boundary to make him know.
Because I believe Wyatt is related to me. That's what I think.
Yeah, if he goes to somebody's house and they say, let's have pizza, he's not going to say, oh, is it gluten-free and dairy-free? He'll go, yeah. So that kind of keeps me overly enmeshed with him in that I feel like I can't let him go to somebody's house unless it's an autism parent who does ABA, who's GFC. And that limits
to my
Shannon.
But you want to be careful, Nancy, because you want to give credit to other families as well, right? I think if you discussed it with a mom or a dad and there was going to be a play date and you listed the dietary limitations, I think everyone would understand and be able to, adhere to that, either.
Vince, we love you so much, Vince.
I do have a friend who knows his dietary limitations, who used to live up the street from us before we moved, and he would go down there, but he would somehow make his way to her pantry.
Oh, please. My mother, who knew exactly what the limits were, would stick a jelly bean in my son's mouth when I wasn't watching with everything in it, artificial colors and everything that we weren't doing.
And say, he deserves a treat.
And say, you gotta let him have sugar at some point. And I would say, what? California's going to go into the ocean, or what?
Right.
But also remember, that's a different family dynamic. That's your mom, so
but Nancy's neighbor,
she knows more.
My neighbor, the problem with some of these people is they keep bowls of candy out in the house. The way some people eat is just amazing.
And even, I will be honest, that Wyatt came to a birthday party with Andrea and not with you, and while we were standing there, took a piece of cake away from somebody else and took a bite. Even in my house, my GFCF house, we had an issue.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
It is hard.
It is really hard because you can't change, other people's households. You can't change their routines. You can't change the things that they like to do. But that helps us make the decision if that's an appropriate location for a play date or not, right?
Yeah.
So we start safe. We start with people that we can trust, either it be a neighbor or a friend or a relative that we can trust, and we can set up situations where we're not there, right? Going back to the original question, is having a play date where mom's not present or another family member's not present. We have to look at our community, look at our families, and find the one safe spot where they're going to follow your diet. They're going to put the candy away. They're going to put, a stool or something in front of the pantry so it doesn't open or what have you, so that he doesn't do that. Now, I'm hoping that their behaviors, and again, this is for everyone, so the variety of behaviors are going to change. But for the, for specifically for your two boys, that they would understand not to go search for other food. They should be occupied with the other child, playing games, activities, going outside, those types of things. So
my kid's always going to search for food.
But I will say, with the, when that happened the first time, when Wyatt took a piece of somebody else, he didn't know me as well and he didn't know my house. Now, the last time he was at a birthday party, he came in and said to me, "Okay, Shannon, what can I have? What's gluten-free?"
That's right, and you had a cake for him.
And I said,
"There's
"There's
special
this,
cake."
there's this," and we discussed it many times throughout the party, and he policed himself and was great.
Right, and he knows. We go over with him. He goes, we say, "Why can't you have this?" And he goes, "Because it makes my tummy upset and my brain not work."
There we go.
So he knows that. I guess it's just the constant reiteration. And Vince, I guess I'm just afraid of raising my child in a bubble. I guess I have this deep-seated fear that there's so many checks and balances with his behaviors, with his diet, with so many things that I don't want him to be in a bubble. I want him to be in the world. Right. But I feel like I have so many things that I have to monitor and be prepared for. And I try to be prepared, like provide the right snack when he's going somewhere. And God knows, birthday parties are a nightmare for most autism moms everywhere, because we bring our own foods and we bring our own so many things, right?
That doesn't
Vacations.
Even cover the sensory stuff.
And the sensory stuff,
Yeah.
I guess you're saying baby steps and people you trust.
The first step is what you both you ladies have already talked about, is having the boys being able to know and be able to say what they can and can't do, right? Being able to understand and be compliant and cooperate with having a special cake, not having other things, being able to ask, what can I eat, rather than just grabbing and being impulsive, right? Both of the boys are at the stage now where they know not to just go grab food because it might make their tummy upset, it might make them upset. So that's actually your marker on, is it something that they'll be able to maintain on their own, right? Again, we need another safe environment to be able to test it and check it. But that's the first step, is being able to have them monitor what they can and can't eat, as long as their level of functioning is at that level where they can do that. And it's great to hear that the last experience that, that he went into, Wyatt went into and said, what can I have? Or is there a special cake? So that he's able to identify that he can't have just what everybody else is having. That's fantastic.
He was a champ that night.
He was
a total delight. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, and I this is a conversation that we could have forever,
right,
and 8 more days.
Right.
Because all of our kids are different. All of us are different. You said you don't want your child to be raised in a bubble, and I'm so afraid somebody's going to pop the bubble that I put around him. So,
No, I
it's
appreciate
hard.
that.
We're all walking on that really tiny balance beam, trying to find just the right thing.
And they're growing up way too fast.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you guys touched my heart when you were talking about the driving, because my daughter just had her first behind the wheel outside of me last week.
Oh.
Well, I'm thinking about, they say those cars that drive themselves are coming any minute,
Yes,
so I'm
counting
on that.
There we go. Well, Vince, thank you for the therapy.
Thank you.
Because we need it.
We do.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again next month.
All right, guys. Take care, ladies.
Take care, Vince.
Bye.
We're here at the end of the show. We don't even have time to take a break, but always thrilling to have Vince here with us.
Yeah,
so that,
to help deal with our neuroses.
And to be honest about it, because it helps me when I'm honest about it, when I come clean here on this show, because I know that there are those of you who can relate.
When I see what some of these neurotypical kids are doing,
I'm
in Starbucks and there's a neurotypical kid my son's age ordering a double espresso, and while he's talking on his cell phone, planning his, and I'm like, whoa, it's just like the disconnect, and I feel like, am I just overly shielding him and should I be coming into some more of these experiences?
Yeah, well, just because they can do it doesn't mean they should,
I
right?
know, I
For those
know.
neurotypical kids. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, we're almost out of time here. I want to take just a second because our total schedule for tomorrow has changed. And I want to let people know that on the show tomorrow, we're having back, yes, we just had her on yesterday, but we're having her back tomorrow, Elaine Hall, Coach E.
Okay.
And she's coming with Spencer. Spencer is going to be doing a little
applications in, and we can talk about that tomorrow.
And we talked about it with Elaine a little bit yesterday.
Okay.
And we'll be talking
Yeah,
about it again
we're going to be
tomorrow.
funding, I believe, 20 kids for this camp. I mean, absolutely
and we're still
free.
looking for neurotypical teens and college students to be the peer educators as well. So they'll be on the show. And also on the show tomorrow, Sue Cho's coming on. We debuted this week the yoga that she did with Jem. We're going to have Sue here talking with us and about the other project that she was working on, technology for that she's paired up with Act Today. So it's kind of an Act Today today tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
It's Jem's favorite day because it's his two favorite guests, Spencer and Sue Cho on the same show.
Great.
He's coming because he wants to be here. So in any case, that's what's happening tomorrow. Next week on the show, we're going to be talking about the Ride for Autism.
Yes, which is a big event coming up.
Big
It's
event
so
coming
much
up.
fun. And our friend, the drummer.
Yes. That we're looking to see if that's a potential that we can have a very special guest.
Crystal's son is performing at that.
Yes.
Yeah, so there'll be lots of great, and I understand Rob Morrow's going to be there.
Yes, the actor Rob Morrow.
And if you haven't been to this Ride for Autism, when
I have
these
never been able to
bikers come in, and literally hundreds, they've got a police escort,
We're out of
and then
time.
you see, we're out of time.
We're out
It's
of
so
time.
great.
It's great. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.